Hey.
Hey, what up, dude? How you doing, man?
Oh, good, man.
Yeah, I was separated from you for about an hour and a half.
It's true.
When I go into the other room, like we can't do the Zoom call in the same room, so.
Man.
Wow. Yeah, Chad had some interesting things to say.
He did. He had a lot to say.
Yeah, and like not even making fun of him or anything like that. It was just like he was chock full of information.
He was.
So we're going to keep our intro super short for you guys, and we're going to get right into it. So we had an interview with Chad Grant. You might know him from Victory 44, Upton 43. He was the exec at Broder's for a while. He was the exec at It's Greek to Me. He helped elevate some of the Greek food there for a while. Mm-hmm. He's been in the Minnesota cooking game from Duluth to Minneapolis, St. Paul, the
past
whole deal.
20 years.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, he's one of the people that I look up to the most. He's probably taught me, he's one of my top 3 of people who have taught me in the industry. So yeah, he had a lot of great things to say, and then he's now a butcher at Sims, and they do like farm to table butchery for restaurants down in Indiana. He's got plans to hopefully open up his own butchery down in Indiana, and then mix Minnesota, have a Minnesota butchery and have an Indiana butchery.
Which would be super cool.
Yeah. So here's Chad Grant, guys. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
But I work in LaPorte, so I just got home from work. I got my, you'll like this, my really flavorful seltzer water here. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's my happy hour right now, but I'm trying to watch my carb intake. So.
Yeah.
I get it.
Trying to lose that inner tube on the bottom there.
Well, yeah, that's why I got from the chest up on this video right now.
That's how we roll.
Oh, you look good.
From the chest up, I still look like I still lift weights and stuff, but now I just throw around side the beef all day. So.
Yeah, That's true, man. That's so. Like on average, how much do they weigh? Like
anywhere from like 400 to 600 pounds per side.
So So what's your actual title there?
Right now, I'm like just one of the lead butchers. You know, it just so happened like when I moved back, obviously I was taking some time off, and I didn't want to immerse myself into the even more so demanding restaurant role as a head chef during this COVID stuff. Like, I mean, everybody's working so much harder than they ever had to.
Oh yeah.
And you know, with my family circumstances and stuff like that, I was just like, there's no way I'm gonna. So I was laying low, and then all of a sudden, Whitney, actually, my girlfriend, and I quickly like learned that Northwest Indiana has a big problem with meat processing. Like everybody's booked, everybody freaked out, got their livestock in, so nobody can get any of their livestock processed. There was no auctions after the fairs and all the 4-H animals and stuff like that. Just there was nowhere to put them. So we're kind of like the only game in town for that area of Indiana, and we're booked out 2 years. So it was like,
oh shit.
So Whitney does farming, and she knows a bunch of people that get their meat processed there, and she just heard through the grapevine that they were really backed up and needed somebody. And being that I've been cutting meat for 20 years, I got right in and got put right into a lead spot, fabricating whole animals, and it's a total kill facility and everything. I don't do any of that. I just break down sides of beef and pigs, and my record now is 26 pigs in one day. So we're cranking. So
that's so wild.
But I do everything there. You know, it's kind of like you want to learn everything. There's sausage making. We're making bacon, hams. It all depends on what the customer wants, but we got a retail side of things that we're trying to grow and stuff like that. So it's very much related to the food service industry. It's just I work 5 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. right now. So you know,
that's
it's like
awesome though. Yeah, that's some good time.
Yeah, I mean, getting up real early has been an adjustment, but you know, I just been sliding back my go to bed time a little earlier. It's hard to do when it's summertime and it's still light out and you're having to go to bed, but it's worth it to have this entire afternoon time off instead of 2:10 p.m. to 3 a.m. or whatever.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things about working in the restaurants is that when we talked about this on the phone the other day, is you go home and then all there is to do is sit by yourself and drink.
Yeah, drink.
Yeah.
Or like play video games, or go to the bar for a while. It's like the only shot you have at socializing with anybody, unless you have like several people that you live with that are up, is going to the bar. And that's really it. I mean, you spend so much time, and if you have a girlfriend that understands your hours, or whatever, and
which is extremely hard to find.
yeah, that's cool because you can enjoy that time that way. But most, like, I'm with a school teacher, so it's like my schedule and her schedule right now is not too different, which I've never experienced in the last 20 years. So it's kind of cool. But
well, I think it's incredibly nice, but it's also nice, like, if you're trying to lead a different like lifestyle. Like when I was cooking, I mean, both of you know, like, where I ended up going with kind of my use and stuff. And then when I was trying to get sober, that was like a serious problem, is like the only people that I would meet are people that are, about to go out at 10 p.m. And it's like, well, what are we going to do? Drink seltzer water.
Right. Exactly.
So it's got to be nice for you. Now, do you sell livestock directly to restaurants at all?
We don't right now because we're pursuing that. And that's part of the thing that I aim to help grow over there is where our kill facility, it's technically supposed to be off center with the rest of the building. It can be attached, but like right now there's like a direct hallway from the front door past the cut room, past the smokehouse, and then through a door, and then it's like that's the kill room. So the federal licensing requires that kill facility just be off center a little bit. It can still have like a hallway attachment or the pulley system that goes from where you hang the hot carcasses and in the chill room to chill. That's fine that if that pulley system connects to your aging cooler, but it's fine for what we do. But to get that federal licensing, we are in the process of actually putting a bid together to build a separate kill facility that matches the requirements. Because you got to be really careful. Like once you pass that door and once they're killing animals, you're dealing with feces and all sorts of stuff, that they're really big about the cross contamination. Especially you hear about 99.9% of recalls on beef and stuff like that are due to contamination from feces. I mean, that's a fact. So that's where E. coli comes from. So it's but they're one step away, and the demand is definitely there, because much to my surprise, when I came down to Indiana, and then not just on a vacation basis, I realized that everybody around here is all about farm to table, and not necessarily like the trendy food scene farm to table like we know, but like they want to eat food raised on a farm down the road.
Right.
Basically, I mean, we're booked till December 2022 right now.
Yeah.
Because
we actually so we just went to we went to Iron Shoe Farm up in Princeton, and they did they used all of the ingredients from that farm and then did like a tasting menu. And it was like definitely more of what you're talking about, but that's the same thing that the farmer there told us, is that everybody's booked out years in advance. Like they actually have to drive all their livestock from Princeton, which is, fairly near the Twin Cities, all the way up to like Duluth near two harbors to get their livestock processed. Now, do you think that that's because of things that have happened in COVID-19, or what led to that being an issue? Like, why don't we have the processing facilities that we need?
I think it's definitely 100% due to it. Because like back, even like when I was a kid around here, if you didn't get, your stuff in by a certain time, they were booked up back then. Now they're booked up way more than ever before now, because all the auctions got shut down. And like just LaPorte County, for example, has a huge county fair, and 4-H is a big deal. And that's all your lambs, your hogs, your cows, And then, normally after a 4-H show, they get judged. The kids get their award and their prizes, and then they go to auction. So then you get paid for your animal, and then they go to the market from there. So all of that was shut down. And I think in anticipation of that, all the farmers that had livestock were still able to do 4-H shows, but there was no place to put the animals afterwards. And that's like, this is some pretty straight up farm country. So it's a big deal down here, and any other farm areas too. But I mean, like all of Indiana it's like Wisconsin. It's all farming industry.
Yeah.
And like, so I think just LaPorte County alone, we had something like 150 pigs come in, and they're just finding that farmers are raising this livestock, and not just in 4-H, but a lot of the processing plants got shut down over COVID.
Yeah.
So it was like, whatever we can do to get our animals processed, because number one, they're on a timeline to where they're optimal before they turn into retired, skanky cows that don't taste good.
Yeah.
Right.
And number two, they're feeding these animals and not making any money on them. So like, it's a lot of mouths to feed if you're a steer farmer and have 20 head that you're planning on as part of your income throughout the year. So I think they took a hit on it. They just got it processed. And what we're seeing as we process these animals is like, it's real common to be like, hey, let's go in on a half a hog. Well, now you're seeing hogs and cows split up like even like up to 6 different ways, because people are going in on it to get the meat in the freezer and get it bought and all that
Yep.
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I've kind of experienced, so I went in on a half a hog up here, and it was far cheaper than it was, but I went through, some guys who had just started up and basically did their thing in their, they like built a little facility on their on their land, and they broke down a pig up here. Now it was a lot cheaper. Now, how's the price point on all this stuff been affected by all this movement? Has it gotten cheaper? Has it gotten more expensive? Like, what's the deal there?
I think, and this is interesting because the guy I'm working for is a very long ago family friend. So like we got reacquainted, like had that like, oh my God moment. Like you used to come to my house when you were a little kid type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I know that, through conversations we've had, he tried to, in the beginning, like remain competitive and fair, but now like I'm actually contemplating doing deer processing on the side this fall, because nobody can do it. Nobody will even think about doing it because they don't have the time. So that means you can basically charge whatever you want without being a complete jerk about it.
Right.
But like, I think the going rate for a deer is like $150, and I'd be like, I'm going to process it into whatever the, most amazing sausage, jerky, sticks, whatever, like put that spin on that sort of thing and try to, and be like, well, I'm charging $2 and a quarter, because realistically, I want to start up little secret, like now's the time to start a meat business. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of business out there, especially with all these other, the restaurant industry is just, it's kind of just hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
It's super hanging on by a thread.
Yeah. Everybody that we've talked to has kind of just been like, yeah, I don't have a job. I don't have a plan for a job. I'm totally screwed. And we're like, sweet, tight, cool. This is a great podcast. Hopeful
This is
podcast.
an awesome show.
Yeah.
But no, so tell me a little bit about, like, if you want to start a meat business, what does that entail? And like, what are you thinking in terms of a meat business? Are you thinking like charcuterie? Are you thinking like being the intermediary between the facility and the restaurant, or like what's going on there?
Well, I don't want to be a part of a killed facility necessarily if it was my own, but I want to break down whole animals or sides anyways, offer choice steaks. Cause like where we're at right now, our retail side, it's processing. It's not a butcher shop. And we have everything from like, some really nice prime Herefords. And I cut up a couple of those today actually. And I was just literally like, especially as a chef, just drooling while I'm cutting these steaks.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you'll see like some skanky old dairy cow that just couldn't, that the farmer was like, oh, we better turn her into ground beef or whatever.
Right.
Like, so there's some extremely quality stuff, and then there's some middle of the road stuff because you're getting it from certain farms. Like my shop, I would like to order specific breed, specific aging,
Mhm.
upper echelon, and not be, like, it's hard to say not be too expensive, because upper echelon is very expensive when it comes to beef, but do pork, but then, yeah, like, do a lot of charcuterie and like a lot of different sausages, and actually have a retail side of things where it's like a delicatessen grocery / butcher shop. But I also do deer processing. But see, you take the kill facility aspect out of that, and you can do all that without all the rigorous inspection stuff, and
Yeah.
just retail right out of and then put your spin on it, like make your own whatever, and have like a full-blown deli case with fresh steaks, plenty of frozen retail stuff. I do the deer processing, and then also, it kind of is a lot of work to start, but Whitney raises goats and sheep, so it's like, I've been saying we need to start letting those sheep, I'm not sure the process, but like, there's something you got to do where they keep producing milk, and it's, like goats will keep producing milk even long after they have given birth or something like that. I'm not sure that she knows that's all about, but I was like, there's so many different like sheep's milk cheeses and like goat
Oh
milk
yeah.
products, and like, all that stuff. So where if we could get on that and sell that sort of stuff, and kind of blend to make the ultimate delicatessen butcher shop, I think it would be pretty cool. So
I think it would be great, because
It'd be awesome.
I'm somebody who's aware of your abilities with charcuterie. I mean, you've done a lot of amazing stuff in my presence. Can you tell, so people at home don't know too much about charcuterie, can you kind of like explain some of the things that you would do both with pork, maybe some bresaola kind of stuff? Like, what does that entail?
well, it can be, it really depends on where the shop would be, because like, people are very particular, and there's a lot of food savvy people down here, but it's a small percentage. But for me, I'm a big fan of, the liver sausages and stuff with foie gras, even, even if you source it from a proper farm. Definitely some, Spanish chorizos and some hard cured salami and stuff like that in-house, I think is good, but it's also pretty mainstream. You get a good artisan feel, that's fulfilling to make that sort of stuff and have it turn out good. And I think if people realize that you're doing it in-house and you're making it, that adds some appeal. But like, when we're talking about, Copa di Testa and like, different liver sausages, and like even doing, pates and stuff like that, like that's all right up my alley. But I think I would just have like a rotate, kind of like you do in a restaurant. If you keep a portion of your menu open for creativity and trial and error stuff, like you're gonna accumulate so much stuff to work with, particularly organ meat that doesn't go. So that stuff tends to stockpile up. So I think you just got to keep experimenting with it and see what catches and what sells, and then just make that your 6 or 8 or whatever products that you continue to make. But definitely, the simple stuff like bacon, ham, brats and sausages and stuff like that in-house is easy to do, because everybody loves that stuff,
Right.
But
I like that idea of like, of having it like a revolving menu, but for your charcuterie. I think that's awesome, because that's something that I've seen you do with menus really well, is, like we've done hyper seasonal stuff where it's like, we have something today and then we don't have it tomorrow, and then, but this caught on and we have a bunch of this. So we're going to keep doing that every single day until the heirlooms aren't good. Like when we were at Broder's together, I think this was like 2 years ago now, all summer we had different daily stuff that we would do. But I loved the fact that when the heirlooms were good, we made classic heirloom bruschetta and we made heirloom margarita pizzas. And then once the second they were like, this is not, or you were like, it's not so good, you're like, yeah, we're moving on. We're doing truffles. We're doing artichokes. We're doing this other stuff. And to think that translates into that charcuterie butcher shop mentality so well is kind of, it's heartening, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think what's cool about it too is like there's certain things, and I've been preaching this for years, that never go out of style. like big ribeyes and bone-in New Yorks and just like all this great meat where it's like, you know, so if you can get people to come in and experiment a little bit on top of just buying steaks and pork chops and whatever, and then, you know, I would try to offer up some sort of like, you know, I'm going to cook there and have samples of different stuff for the guests, and then like have like full scale knowledge on what to do with these things, and open that up and like use that side from the kitchen to be like, oh, well, you should take this home, and you know, if you got some of this or that, this is how I would do it, and educate people on things like shanks and skirt steaks and pork briskets and stuff like that, because like a lot of cuts, especially cuts, we're not doing very many of where I'm at. And like, you know, it's interesting when you're cooking chuck or butchering chuck roasts and sawing them on the bandsaw, and I see like this perfect marbled chuck flap in there that has to be cut out, and like somebody has to be told or shown what to do with it.
Yeah.
But like, you know, this is old farm boys just getting their stuff processed. So it's like T-bones, porterhouses, sirloins, chuck roasts, you know, and like the briskets go to grind most of the time, which I'm just like, oh,
wow.
You know, like, I'm just
That's
like,
what a disappointment.
Yeah, it is. Cause like, and then like, years back when I was breaking down pigs, I figured out how to pull, the briskets out of them and trim them up really nice. And it was just like this. So we actually started making corn pork instead of corned beef, and we're doing all sorts of, you know, corn pork hash.
Where was that at?
It was at Victory when we were raising pigs and, you know, just bringing them on down to play with them.
Yeah.
You know, just do. But corn pork is amazing, and like the brisket is incredible. You know, it's not nearly the same size, but you know, that normally goes immediately to sausage production and stuff like that too. So I would really like to educate people on like what to do with some of these specialty cuts that they don't even know about.
Well, you could even do classes and all that kind of thing too, which would be kind of cool, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
man, that's a good idea, man.
I
like that. I like that.
Restaurants are, you know, you gotta, you know, I think I've been having this plan for a while actually. So it's ironic that I started working in like a full-blown meat processing facility, because that's really what I wanted to do, you know, and like it just kind of fell in my lap, and like I've had this plan for a long time, but now working with it and then just continuously getting those ideas, and like it's pretty repetitious work because you're kind of just breaking down and cutting steaks, but my mind is just going like, oh, look at this. This is the perfect one to do this with, or cut that, you know, skirt out of there and I'd marinate it this way or whatever. And I come home and like, it's funny because like a couple people were like, oh, that kind of job will turn you into a vegan. And it's like, no, it's actually got me in more of a carnivore than I've ever been, because I'm thinking about food all day long as I butcher it. So it's fun stuff though.
Okay, so I have a question to ask, because so you're in Indiana right now, and the whole show is called Minnesota Well Done. So I got to connect it back to Minnesota somehow. And this is one question that I've just kind of been burning since you went down there. What does let's kind of take it in a context of pre-COVID, right? What does the Minnesota, Minneapolis, Twin Cities food culture look like in Indiana? Does anybody talk about it, or are they just like, if we're going to go to a good restaurant, we're going to go somewhere near, or we're going to go to Chicago? What, like, does anybody know about Minnesota?
A little bit. A lot of my friends actually are, I hate the word foodie, but you just got to use it because they consider themselves that. But then I was like, oh, okay, well, let's hear why you're a foodie, I guess, because I have to hear that from a lot of people that aren't really, but claim to be.
Yeah.
But like a good bit of my friends down here travel around to eat, and they cook. And like I've got a couple friends that are former chefs that I grew up with and went to school with, and like I got a buddy that didn't like the unconventional lifestyle of being a chef after a while, so he got a job working sales at D'Artagnan.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
You know, he actually expanded D'Artagnan up to Minneapolis. So like, I think he was one of the guys down here that started spreading the word about restaurants because he was repping up there and like eating at all the restaurants. So like I think word kind of got back into the foodie scene. But you know, Chicago's right there too, man. So it's like people, you know, kinda, you know, like kinda, sorta, but not really.
Yeah,
know?
not on that level, right?
Yeah, I think it's still relatively new that Minneapolis became one of the country's food meccas. Like I think a lot of people don't know yet. You know.
Yeah, but you think that it is a food mecca?
Oh, I think in the last 10 years, it's. I think with the accreditation alone from some of the chefs in Minneapolis getting all those beard nominations and you know, stuff like that, I think there's larger eyeballs that have been on Minneapolis area for a long time now, and that wasn't like that when I started. You know, there was like 4 of us. There was Victory and Piccolo and Porter and Fry and like you know, I'm trying to think of the other one. There was what's that one? St. Paul on Selby, W.A. Frost.
Okay, yeah.
You know, places like that where like there was only a handful of places.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, you know, it just exploded where now there's like probably 30 that I could think of off the top of my head that are like that scratch chef driven, modern cooking and stuff like that. And I think, you know, some big name chefs have rolled through there that have gotten national attention with celebrities like Andrew Zimmern and, you know, Anthony Bourdain when he was around, you know, was plugging Minneapolis really good. You know, so I think you know, and I think that, you know, award-winning chef type of crowd is not afraid to travel to go there. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of good restaurants there, you know, and hopefully there continues to be, but, you know, I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, they're struggling around here. I know they're struggling in Minneapolis. But, you know, one of my favorite places that I'm not always about the trendiest or most talked about thing. I'm about the tastiest food around. And, you know, our Greek buddies down there know how to throw down pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. I ate there the other day, actually. I ate there and just tomorrow we're going there and we're going to film an episode like on their patio.
Okay.
See, part of the problem with places in Minneapolis right now is it's a mixture of the COVID problems and things that are happening because of the political unrest. There's so many protests turning into riots. There was arson. There was a lot of looting. And so like a lot of people aren't even sure that some of those Minneapolis restaurants are open. And even on the St. Paul side, I have it's a friend of a friend was opening a restaurant right across from the XL Energy Center, and that was burned to the ground too. And they just found out that it was arson. So it's like there's like these other problems. Like if COVID wasn't enough, there's these other problems. See, the thing is what Seth and I have started to see as we interview different people who are either out of work or temporarily out of work or worried about their business, is that there's actually a lot of hope in the community that like things are going to bounce back once we get COVID under control, whether it be vaccine, whether it be, you know, proper social distancing rules. Once it's a little bit on the back burner, they think that the restaurant industry is going to bounce back. It's not going to be the same that it was, but it's going to be this new good thing. And so, you know, I'm excited to be a part of like, well, I think I'll talk for Seth for a second. I think we're both excited to be a team of people who can kind of like bring out this new culture, you know, because like so I've kind of like fallen out of love with a lot of stuff that's gone on in the industry, like you say about things like trends. Like it's been kind of hard to watch like people be like, this is our new avocado toast menu, and it's like it's like, come on, dude. Like, but that's, you know, that's what it's been. And since I've left Victory 44, I've seen a lot less of like the just pure, like, we want to make the best food. And when it gets to your table, it's going to be the most amazing thing. A lot more things are money driven, trend driven now. And I guess I just worry about that sometimes. And I'm hoping that after COVID, we'll get kind of like a resurgence of that in some of the more talented chefs that we have.
Yeah, I think, you know, when it comes to trendy food, like I think, you know, you got to go back to like that victory mentality. Like we only, you know, sure, like you got to, if you're going to be a player nowadays, you got to like know what modern cooking techniques are all about and know them and know how to stand behind them when you choose to do them. But there's so much classic food out there that's done poorly. And I think if you, even though sometimes, you know, we get a little bit bored, like particularly when I was a lot younger, there were certain things I didn't want to cook because it wasn't creative enough, or like I see it all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, now it's like people really value having the best version of something that's familiar to them that they possibly, and that's where it's like, I think the restaurants are going to succeed that, you know, offer value for the dollar because everybody's going to be budget conscious, have a good environment, and just a solid menu full of like, you know, because when I go out to eat, like Valparaiso is supposed to have like this pretty hot food scene, and I'm not dogging it or anything, but like the first couple of restaurants that I went to that are known as like you got like, oh, you're in town, you got to go eat here and here and here, you know?
Right.
So I did right away, and I was just like, oh, great. It's one of those IQF frozen red snapper fillets. Right. This is, you know, and it's just like, as a chef, it's like, don't, you know, people shouldn't be tricked. You know what I'm saying? Like chefs will call you out on that stuff. I can go in there and pick every little detail apart and tell you what food purveyor it probably came from because I've seen it, worked with it at some point, whatever. But like, if people are also like very easily persuaded to believe just because like a different crowd of people says, or their friends or whoever get behind a place, but why include that when all you need to do is go sit down and be like, man, that was like some of the best, that was like the best freaking burger I've had, or the best fried chicken, or the best fish sandwich, you know, all these things. It's like, and the friendly atmosphere and the hospitality aspect of it is what's really important, because a lot of restaurants miss that. If you feel special and you ate good food and it didn't break your bank, you're going to go back. I mean,
I think that's what's going to drive after this COVID thing, is the hospitality aspect of it too. Yeah,
to feel appreciated and stuff like that. I was just this last weekend, I was in Saugatuck, Michigan, fishing all weekend, and went up there. I got a buddy that owns a restaurant in Douglas, Michigan, which is, if you look at the map or are familiar, it's like Saugatuck's here and across the bridge is Douglas. It's like it's Saugatuck, Douglas, basically. And the Kalamazoo River runs through it. It's got killer walleye fishing. And so we went to go see my buddy at his restaurant. Didn't know if he was going to be there or not. And it was weird because in New Buffalo, Michigan, you can sit inside, but we get to Douglas and it's patio seating only. And his place is pretty big. And all of a sudden I see him and he's, you know, gloved up. He's the owner and general manager, and he's bussing tables. He's dealing with guests. He's running food. He's stacking chairs. He's making drinks. And I'm just like, oh my God, like that is what it is. Cause I haven't worked in a restaurant since COVID. And I was just been like, you know, I said from the beginning, like, this is going to turn into way more work than it's ever been to stand out and succeed. So, and I did wind up getting to talk to him, but like, he looked exhausted and he's like, I don't know if things are going to be okay or not. We're trying to do what we got to do. But he only had like a dozen tables on the patio, but he had like 40 on the inside. So I think that a real smart move, and it's really hard to do when you're like a young aspiring chef or whatever, is to get, the more ambitious that you are with your creativity and your food creation, the more work you're creating. So I think like pick 12 things that you know how to do better than anybody else and run with it, you know, because you'll make money that way. Because, you know, the time for, you know, being like super up and coming or, you know, following those food trends or chasing headlines versus chasing properly balanced P&L sheets in your restaurant are over. You know, it's always been hard as it is. Now your error, or your margin for error is just way slimmer than it ever was. So, you know,
that's actually something that I've always really appreciated about you. It's, you know, there has been some trend following, and there's definitely been some creativity, but that's what you've done. I think that's what you did so well at Victory, and you've brought it to other restaurants, like when you were exec at It's Greek to Me and when you were exec at Broder's. It was always, I talked to Real about this, it's always these simple techniques done near perfection, applied in slightly new ways. Sometimes not. Sometimes it was just like absolute classic, like, the margarita pizza, or sometimes it was like you'd use a sauce American and you'd do it perfectly, but you'd use it for, a special shrimp dish instead of like a lobster dish. And so I hear you when you say, pick 12 things, but there's so many things that people can do with those 12 things. That's the cool thing. It's like, if you think about all the different ways that you can apply the vast knowledge of your, even if you have a small skill set, it's unimaginable. Like I have a friend who was at the Lexington. She was the CDC at the Lexington for a while, but she's from Venezuela, and she's opening a Venezuelan bakery. And it's like,
that's cool.
It's really not a huge menu. It's just like, arepas and empanadas and a couple other things that I don't know about yet. And it's like, it's new, it's fresh. There's some of her own personal creativity thrown in, but it's a lot of heavy tradition. And that's so key. I don't think people really understand, like, you can be creative, but you can only be creative once you have the fundamentals down. Once you have, your basic techniques down. It's kind of like, when a coach is on, you're on a basketball team and you're trying to, do an ollie-oop, or not an ollie-oop. Yeah, an ollie-oop. When you're trying to dunk it and you're trying to be, fancy, but you don't even know how to dribble and pass and run the proper team. It's like, so yeah, I feel you there.
Well, I'll tell you the thing behind that too. And like, I love to see creative, fun stuff. And like, when it works out and you're wowed by it, which is, it's kind of rare, because the creative thought overrides like you said, the fundamental technique that it takes to actually get there. If you can make, and the cool thing about those techniques is they're building blocks. I mean, I have classic old French books and like some of my culinary books where like these old school sauces like sauce American are techniques, but you can add your little flair to that as long as you follow that technique.
Yeah.
And then because otherwise it's just a wasted effort. And at the end of the day, you got to eat the creativity, and it's got to be delicious for it to actually work out. And like, this brings me back years back to like when me and Harsey were in the kitchen one day together, and I literally like had got in, made my pasta dough the night before, started making fresh ricotta in the morning, found some random greens off of some vegetables that we cleaned, and made like a very classic ravioli. And we had some, pretty cool, I don't remember the dish exactly, but I picked that's some work. You're going to be in the kitchen making that, especially because when we did fresh pasta there, it was gone in like a day. I'm like, oh great. Right. I was down there making it for like 6 hours. And
yep.
Guess what I'm doing tomorrow too, and like, but he was trying to make these like spheres or some shit like that. It was like a Dr. Pepper sphere.
A Dr. Pepper. Yeah, you told me.
I told you this story.
Yeah.
Because it's such at the square root of what we're talking about. This, and I have many, many, many stories about cooking in the kitchen with that guy, but like he worked for like 8 hours on these spheres, like no joke. And he's down there and he's like doing this and doing all the, and I'm like sitting there like rolling pasta dough and like making raviolis by hand and like tasted all my, and it's like a completely scratch made from the ground up and like with farm fresh eggs and all that stuff. And like, I'm like, I know I'm making something incredibly delicious.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when he finally like got him set, he comes over to me with a spoon and hands me one. And I taste it, and I could taste the calcium chloride. I could taste it. It was a sphere, and it worked. And I could taste the Dr. Pepper, but it also tasted like bleach, basically.
Yeah.
And I told him I was like, it worked, but it tastes like bleach. And he's like, he tastes one, gets mad, throws all of his stuff away, and leaves for the day. And I was just like, you know, you wasted your whole day.
And that's a great example too.
You know, like during that day, I made a ton of delicious things, and you know, none of them failed. But you know, there's some techniques that I don't mind using too, but I don't get too in depth with that sort of stuff. So it's all it's pretty funny though. I mean, like simple things like searing, getting a good sear on your lamb shank before you braise it, like not just to brown it a little here and there, or that looks good, it'll be okay. Like seriously, sear it all the way around. Take the time, no matter how long it takes, because that's that extra layer of flavor that makes yours better than somebody else's. And that's what you got to do. I mean, that's what I've always done, and unfortunately it's kept me in the kitchen for more hours than most, I'd say. But you know, happy guests, you know, that's what you're in this business,
and that's the point.
Happy, you know. That's all there is to it, you know. I always tell my guys on like right before like really busy nights when you're super proud of them is like, just think of all the sex you're going to be responsible for tonight, you know?
Yeah.
That, you know, normally the response is like, well, I'm not getting any because I'm going to be here all night. But, you know,
Right.
You know, you're providing a lot of happiness, so do it right, you know, be thorough.
Yeah, you know, we talked to Kevin Roos of Pazzaluna, Seth and I, and we were talking to him about like the actual seeing people have that first bite. And it's like, you know, sex or no sex, right? Date or no date, that is the point, right?
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yep.
And that, you know, that'll translate into dollar signs if you do it correctly,
Yep.
right? But that's always been like the absolute goal for me. And I know it's been for you and for you as well, Seth. And it's just interesting to, I don't know. I see people not do that. And I get very, very upset when that's not people's point, right? Like instead it's like, I want to do this crazy thing and I want to be this creative person. And it becomes about their ego, right? Where it's like, where I can, you know, I can sear a scallop right, put some butter in the pan, brown the scallops, and if I do that perfectly, the person is going to enjoy that meal. And you're over here with your beakers and your, you know, I'm going to make a gas that tastes like grape, and I'm going to put, you know, I'm going to fill a balloon with smoke that tastes like, you know, eel sauce. Like,
Right.
you know, that's just not what it's about. And I think that's a problem. You know, this is more for the more industry heavy people, the people who have been in the industry. It's like, I just want people to stick it through if they have a chef that is a little bit more egotistical, right? Because there is that smile at the end if you can do it right, you know? Yeah,
and you know, the ego, it's so prevalent in a lot of industries, but in this one in particular, and like, I'm not, you know, I've definitely had a sizable ego over the years, but like when
I'm
you
aware.
Sometimes I get proud of myself, but it's usually when things are really awesome and I know it, you know, and like there's always been that thing in the kitchen where it's like, back it, you know, because I've come across so many people that think that they just make the world spin, that their food is not anything to brag about at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, not even close. And it's like, you know, that goes all the way back to culinary school. There were these kids that were just like, had the talk and like the swagger,
just
and
wieners.
then like, they just screw up everything. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to be quiet over here and make all my stuff perfect because, you know, we're being judged with grades on it and stuff. And then you get into restaurants and realize that like, it's more about this, like, it's like, oh, I'm glad that you read books, or I'm glad that you watch Iron Chef at night or whatever. But like, how much trial and error, beginning and failure have you gone through? Or like, have you failed and got mad and thrown your stuff away and pouted about it? Or have you understood why you failed, corrected it, and keep pushing forward to make it right? And cooking is an extremely blue collar, non-glamorous thing where it's projected as like, you know, and it's heightened, and like, you know, for a while it's been like, oh, you got to, you know, these chefs, or, you know, these guys that create this magic, and like there's not really any magic about it. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of not being a part of things that your loved ones are a part of, and there's nothing glamorous about it at all.
None.
Until that guest has that wow moment, and then you feel justified by your work because you provided something that that you do better than anybody else. And that shouldn't carry an ego. That should just make you feel like, wow, I'm good at my job.
I'm coming back tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So,
I love that. I wish I could isolate that into a soundbite somehow. Oh, wait, I can, because it's recorded and it's on a podcast. That's great.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
because, I mean, that's really what it's about, man. It's. I think that one thing that when I started working with you is I was not one of those guys who knew all of, I didn't watch these shows and I didn't read these books. But when I came to work, I cared about the cooking and I would put the work in. Now I was a hopeless drug addict, and that ended up kind of, ruining a lot of that. But I think that's what you had appreciated about what I was doing. It didn't matter that I didn't know who Marco Pierre White was at the time. What mattered was when you said that I sliced the onions wrong for the caramelization. I didn't go, well, this is how I do it. It was like, okay, no, I see what you mean. And then when I went home and I read about how an onion bleeds differently depending on how you cut it and how that affects the caramelization process. And I think that's such a key to like anybody who's a line cook right now is like, that is what being a line cook is all about. Being a line cook is not about, oh, can I somehow like have some kind of input into the menu? No, it's about the chef comes over and tells you the actual chemical process of what happens during an emulsification, and you listen. And then you have the ability to do that 350 times a day, and you become a master of that. And then you move on to the next thing. And then within 2 years, you're a line cook, but you have the skills that could, push you to the next level.
well, yeah. And, there's been so many times that I've had stages in with that attitude, or, just have people that call you out and just like want to hear their voice. And this has happened more times than I'm really proud of, but I've kicked people out the door so many times for that because I don't have
That's
time, and like, it's just like, if you're going to dog my stuff, then you better be able to, as a line cook, you're not even in the right, that discipline is what's lacking. And I think when you and I started working together, like you always were able to take as much shit as I would give you and just grin and bear it and push forward, and your stuff would get better and better and better. And that is like the aspect of being a chef where I think, I've been a coach in the past, and there was time I was coaching the swim team one time, and I had some kids that were going to be state champions, and I had a bunch of kids that were lollygagging on the side of the pool and diving down for stuff at the bottom of the pool and weren't there. But the champions were like meeting me before practice, after practice, to refine their skills and their starts and their turns and this and that. And then when I saw that, and believe me, later on, I got accused of favoritism in the coaching aspect because everybody's parent wants them to succeed. And it's like, well, not to say that I exclusively breed champions, but when somebody has what it takes to succeed at what they do, and you have the ability to identify it, you have to harness it and push it and be there for the failures and be there for the positive reinforcement and stuff like that. And it's like, some people don't have thick skin and get offended too easily and stuff like that. And, but when the result is, like, you approach it, you screw it up, and then you get some shit from the chef, and then it actually sticks in your mind that tomorrow when we do this, I'm going to remember what he said and I'm going to make it a little better. And then when you get that positive reinforcement, then it's just like, oh, thank God, he's happy.
Yeah.
The guests are happy. I'm happy. And now I have this skill. Like you said, now I can do this in my sleep. It's like things like hollandaise sauce. Talk about a classic.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people screw that up?
Right.
But if you have the task and you listen and you do it and make hollandaise sauce every single day for an entire year, you got it. You'll never screw it up again in your entire life.
Yep.
It's when, and I'll tell you, that goes as far as like, there's even times that I like, especially if I'm baking something or a little too overconfident in my own skills, where I'm just like, you don't need to do that. Let's just do that. Or I'll skip that and do this. Well, guess what? It gets screwed up. You know what I mean? Like, I screw up stuff all the time. Not so much anymore. Now my cooking it's been pretty limited, you know. Meaning I don't cook all day, every day. Like right now I'm cooking for family and friends often. And that's cool because, like I had a dinner a couple weeks ago with two of my best friends, my girlfriend, my friend's wife, who's from the Philippines. And we did a blended cultural where I did all Greek food and she did all Filipino food.
Oh, that's super cool.
We hung out and cooked together in the kitchen like all day long. And then we sat down and everybody was just like unbelievably blown away, myself included, because I actually got to sit down at the table and enjoy the meal too, you know? So
yeah,
that sort of cooking is awesome, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So do you feel like you'll ever cook as like an executive chef again? You'll ever cook in that capacity again?
You know, there's been a few things lately that have risen that have made me miss it, you know? Today, for example, was one that didn't make me miss the cooking, but we have certain employees that are very proud about the jobs that they do, which are entry level only. You know, if you're not strong enough to handle a side of beef, or you don't have knife skills, or you don't have the experience, or, you know, there are certain jobs that you won't ever do in this shop. So I think when you know that, you almost get real proud, and like that attitude where like, oh, if somebody makes a simple mistake, I'm going to make them feel like an idiot because, you know, or whatever. And that happened. Like a couple things got mixed up, and this person just kind of got softly talking to, like not reprimanded or anything.
Yeah.
By one of the owners who is in the heart of everything, working right alongside everybody, and is very, very nice. It wasn't an ass chewing by any means, but this person took it as like, so it just took on this huge attitude and like started just bitching at everybody. And like, instead of making the, you know, owning up to their mistake and, you know, just being like, let's move on or whatever. And that was like one of the first times that I've felt like, wow, I can't just tell this person to shut up and go home right now. Just get the hell out of here. You know, there's no crying in this, you know, get out of here, you know, either fix it. And like, you know, cause as you know too, and like, I'm not Gordon Ramsay, but that's one aspect that I really like about, and I'm not a control freak. I'm a very laid back guy, but when I'm in the kitchen, I command that kitchen, you know, and things go the way, you know, it's like, and if you step in the way of that, something's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And so like when I was up in Duluth, it came out of me again, because there was a huge lack of talent. And I shouldn't say that, because I do have some really good friends up there that are really talented, but it's like you don't have very many dedicated culinarians up there. You got a lot of guys with a lot of problems that just need a job doing something.
Right.
And you get a lot of mouthy people, a lot of people that don't know. Like I had a kid, a dishwasher, tell me, because I told his uncle or something, I said, go home and talk to him a little bit. Tell him a little bit about kitchen etiquette and, you know, how to address, you know, when I'm busy, don't interrupt me when it's, you know, 7:30 and I'm, you know, garnishing plates and expediting and dealing with servers and stuff. And
where do these plates go?
Yeah. It like just barges right in. And like, I was just like, so you know, I'm compassionate too. So I'm like, hey, tell him, you know, just get in his ear a little bit later and tell him about etiquette, you know, if he's going to be. So the next day he comes in and he says, I'd appreciate it if you got something to say to me, don't tell him to tell me. I'd like to hear it from you. And I said, well, I told him to tell you that so you could avoid what's about to happen next.
Yeah.
Right.
I just lit him up, and I was just like, you know, just that classic. And then he breaks out the rule book and questions my use of profanity. And I said,
Wow.
I was like, run and leave.
Run fucking fast.
Right. I was just like, it just blew my mind. So it was like, I was having to put out a lot more fires up there than, which was another page in my chapter that kind of had me like, I just need to do something else, like it's just not working anymore. So, but I think I would like to always be closely related to the food industry in some way. Executive chef, I don't know. I was just talking to somebody today about it. One of the guys that works on the kill floor over there, and he said that being a chef would be his dream job. And we kind of started talking about it, and I was just kind of like, well, you work a lot, and I don't know about dream job and stuff like that. And like, it's not what you think it is. Just trying to,
dream job. That's great.
Yeah, he's like, I cook all the time, and it's like, man, it ain't. If I could just be a chef and cook all the time, yeah, it'd be great. Yeah. But we got a lot of. It depends. If the restaurant industry bounces back and has that surge and can become a profitable thing where you're not, sticking your neck out and facing potential, I do think that it will surge in light of COVID getting under control. And then when everything's open, that would be a good time for a lot of people to open new restaurants because it will surge. But man, I don't know. I got bad knees, bad back, I just, I love working long. I do love working long days. But you also have this duty as a head chef, if you're going to do it right, that you don't leave. You don't leave your crew. Your dishwasher walks. You're the guy that goes in there. And then, believe me, if you're a respected chef and you're seen in the dish pit because the guy just walked, somebody is going to come in and be like, chef, go home,
Yeah.
If your crew likes you, that's what happened. And but it's up to you to set that standard, and it just requires a lot of work. And now it's like, my son's here going to college. He just got here a couple days ago. I have a amazing girlfriend, she's got kids that are active in a lot of things, and, we're getting close and stuff like that. And there's just so much more stuff that I want to be a part of, and I'm not willing to give up that stuff now because the last 20 years has gone by like that. 20 years from now, I'll be 60.
You're old as shit, dude. You're old ass man.
Right. Yeah.
It's wild.
I know. Well, I'm not, I said this when I turned 30, that I'm not old, but I'm starting to get young, I'm starting to not be young.
Okay.
And, that's definitely the case now. Believe me, you can't see it, but I got a lot of gray hair, and I feel, I get a little more. And this even happened working with you. You'd see it. I can still jump on the line and jam out a dinner, half a dinner service, and then I get I can cook circles around kids for
45
2 hours, and then I'm like, all right, I gotta go.
Yeah, you're like, peace. And I'm like, all right, see you, dude, man. See you, old fuck. Peace out.
Bending down, I'm like,
been there, man.
Yeah, it's just so.
But no, I mean, I see what you're saying. I think that people don't really realize, everybody comes out and says it, and it's like, oh, there's a lot of hours that you got to work. And it's like, no, there's a lot of hours that you have to work.
A lot of hours.
When you say a long day, you mean 18-hour days. You mean, I mean, when a regular day for you is, 10 hours to 12 hours. Right. And, I hear you, man. Live your life. You got to live your life. And I think that as long as you stay adjacent to the industry, right? What I'm going into is, much more ecological and farming. I'm going into the microbiology aspect of everything. I will always be able to mold cooking back into my life. And it's with your charcuterie, with your dream of a butchery and charcuterie delicatessen, whatever you want to say, it's no problem with having 3 dishes on the, it's like, oh, I have extra, I have extra time, or, these things have really caught on. This is a way that I can use this cut of meat and I can, throw it in a farro risotto or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, so yeah, it'll always be there for you, especially with somebody. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to just sit and fawn over you the entire interview, but it's like with somebody with your techniques and your skill, I think that it's always an option to do it even in a part-time sense, like, kind of that adjacent mentality. You don't need, and like Seth and I have found out, it's like that whole white cloth table Lexington 4-story, we're gonna do catering here, and we're gonna have we're cooking here and cooking here and cooking here. We have 350,000 people working for us, and we're doing
Right.
we're doing from 8 a.m. to 2 o'clock in the morning. We're shelling out 400
Fucking shelling it.
400 person rushes that 5 turns. That's dead, man. It's dead. And so it's like finding that new balance of it's some of it's a hearkening back to that older culture of we're going to go to the farm and we're going to eat what's grown on this farm, almost a farm driven kind of thought process, right? We're talking to a chef right now who like really wants to instill that in people, where it's like, okay, this is what the farmer has, right? So we're going to make something out of that. It's a completely different scenario than when you're, it's like, okay, I got to meet the bottom line. So I got to be here for 30 hours a day, peeling the bottom ends of asparagus all day long, so it's becoming a different world. And I think there's a lot of possibility. Now, there's one thing I want to talk to you about, and then I think we're about at an hour. So I want to bring up a sobriety and drug use in the industry, and how that's impacted your career, and how you what are some words of advice that you can give to people who are, some that are not heavily drinking and some that are heavily drinking, or if there's drug use in a kitchen, like how do you look at that aspect of the industry? Because it's a huge part, right?
It definitely is. And like I said, when recently when I was up in Duluth, it was even more so than like my first job. I had 2 jobs in Duluth in a 2-year period, and my first one, like the second day, I had to fire a kid because he was smoking meth in the kitchen.
Wow.
In the fucking kitchen, dude. Like,
wow.
Like didn't even care.
Yeah.
And and this is like a hotel, like big production, well lit, like, kitchen. And
he's sitting there like, what?
He was in the back prep room and he was just torquing his freaking glass right there.
Wow.
Thinking that, like I was up front and just happened to need to go around the freezer for something. And I saw him. I'm just like, I had to do a double take. Like, was that a freaking meth pipe or crack pipe? I'm like,
yeah.
No way.
Like, yo, you got to go right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to call the cops on you. Now, that's an interesting question, because I've partaken in a lot of stuff over the years, primarily when I was younger. I mean, I think here's the deal. Here's my stance on it right now. You're never going to be truly good at anything if you're under heavy influence, because as you get older, and now there's definitely back when I was like 24, sous chef, partying like a rock star, living in Minneapolis, just there's the girls factor, and like all of a sudden it's like this lifestyle, and like you get attached, and like you're banging a different server every other week. You know what I'm saying? It's just like there's that you jump on, and it's very hard to avoid substance when you're doing that sort of stuff. But it's also easier to like go to bed at 4 and wake up at 7 to go to work. Like I myself need my sleep. Yeah. And if I'm drinking, I need even more sleep than a normal amount to be able to even function. I think that, where I'm at is like your basics. Like I drink, my drinking's, I probably still drink more than I should, but I'm not getting hammered every day or anything like that.
Right.
if I'm not working, I'm usually having drinks. I've definitely separated like hangovers from work or like going into work, you know, it's like I just don't do it anymore. But there's a lot of people that do, and there's a lot of people. One thing I know about substance is like it tricks you, you know, you think you got it down, but like you really don't. You know what I mean? Your confidence is only provided by the substance that you're on. And I have nothing against pot, obviously. And but I think the hard drugs, man, I just, you know, I won't do them, you know. So like I definitely, I think if I had a kitchen, if I started working as a chef tomorrow and had a kitchen full of people that were doing hard drugs, I'd find a way that they go away. Like now, you also, like in your case, for example, when you see somebody that you care about go through it, you want to be there as help. And like, you know, I think you remember that when I knew that you were struggling, I didn't, you know, I fired you. You know what I mean? And that's probably one of the best things I could have done.
Yep.
And I think that our industry is just, and there's not, it's every industry, man. You know, the thing is like, I thought like coming down here and stuff like that would be like easier to avoid drinking, and, you know, cause I've been through some pretty hard times in the last few months, and like, you know, so I was really concerned about that. Well, Indiana, every gas station, grocery store, convenience store, like you go into Walgreens here and there's a full blown liquor store.
It's like Florida.
Yeah, buy anything you want. Like, I mean, it's hard to go into the gas station to buy some, you know, to pay for your gas and walk past the rack of, you know, or get a beverage and walk past the cooler that's got all kinds of frosty beers and stuff in it, you know. And like, I can tell you what I'm doing now is like, it's almost worse in a lot of ways than being home late at night, because now it's summertime and it's, you know, you walk out the door at 1:30 and it's like, oh, it's 90 degrees. Let's go get some margaritas. You know, I got all day, you know, and like, so I think it's any industry. And I think we're a nation that is strongly influenced by drugs and alcohol, you know? So I think that, you know, I don't blame it on our industry, because, you know, I think it just matters the individual. Drugs are everywhere, no matter what. And alcohol is everywhere, obviously. But I really think that if you're under heavy influence, it's going to really prevent you from succeeding, because you're battling fatigue, tiredness, mental unrest, or whatever the case may be. And I think any profession anywhere, even though I'm not currently operating my life as a fully sober individual, I think that you have to have a lot of energy and ambition to succeed. And I think that certain drugs, especially the appetite loss type of drugs, like how do you succeed as a chef if you're not hungry? You know, if you don't want to eat, you know, you're never ever going to be able to succeed as a chef. Now, you know, talk about weed. Now that's something that like you could be extremely successful as a pastry chef, because you get high and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to make this chocolate banana bread or whatever, you know, whatever the case may be. You know, I think that you're dealing with two different scenarios. Hangovers, I don't know. I think, you know, alcohol is a lot more present in a lot of people's lives than we really care to believe. It's just the hospitality industry is driven off of food and drinks, period. So, I mean, when you get out after work and you go to a bar, I think we as industry guys like to hang out in bars because we work closely to them, but we don't get to enjoy them at work. So, and that's really the only time you're going to see your friends is when you go out after hours and go to the bar, because that's the only time that everybody's not working.
So I have a very similar take on it, right? So I've been sober for 3 years now.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, which is, to everybody at home, is pretty wild. It's pretty wild. I mean, both of you know really kind of the extent of like, you guys were like, yeah, I thought you were definitely going to die. So, but,
well, you definitely would have if you wouldn't have got sober.
Oh yeah, totally. 100%.
I agree with that.
I mean, there was just multiple times where I'd come into work. I almost died at work. So it was like, I've talked with Seth a little bit about this on the show, where being sober in the restaurant industry is different than being sober in, well, I mean, not any different. It's not different than every other industry. But like you said, where you were like, I couldn't just go off on this dude, right? Like you can't do that in other industries. So like when I was sober and I no longer have like this, I don't want to call it emotional support because that's not the right word, but I was no longer numbed by whatever I was doing, whether it be alcohol, meth, heroin, whatever. And so it's like we had a couple times where I was working for you and you're like, why are you being such a fucking stupid idiot or something like that? You know, I mean, like it was just, and I was being a stupid idiot, right? But it was like, I was like, you know, I won't say I got my feelings hurt, but like, it was just so raw, right? So like I'd be like angry and like, you know, adjacent, you'd be like, don't fucking look at me like that. You know, you're being a dumbass. And it's like, I think that that's not allowed in a lot of industries. And so that kind of culture, which is a culture that I respect because I respect you and I always respected what you had to say. But I think that in the restaurant industry, some people are a lot worse than that. And so it's like you, especially like if you're someone who is really passionate about food and really creative and really working hard, and you work these 100-hour, you know, work weeks, you're a line cook, you don't get paid, you don't have, you know, it's like you don't see anybody, you have no dignity, and then somebody fucking comes in and is like, you know, takes your dish and throws it against the wall, which I've had that happen multiple times. You're just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna fuck this, you know. Yeah. You know, so that's my thing is like I see that now. Like we just had to bring up somebody, and I'm not gonna bring up their name, who just recently died, and it's like they're trying to get sober, right? But they're trying to get sober in the restaurant industry, and it's just like I agree with you that drugs are everywhere. And the restaurant industry is no different than a lot of different industries in that it's high pressure, but it's also, like you said, it's this blue collar, like kind of salt of the earth, like at its base, that's what it is. So it's like you go in, and you're just like, okay, what do I have? And I think part of my message that I want to get out with this podcast is not something that I originally planned on doing, but I've started to grow, kind of wanting to go like, there is definitely hope for people who are sober in the restaurant industry. It can be done.
Oh, totally.
You know? And I think that what you touched on with like, you need to be at the highest level of your performance as you can be to operate properly is probably one of the most important things that I've ever heard in my life, right? Because I worked for you, right? And you liked what I had to do with my cooking, but I came in and I was fucked up every day. And so like my cutting board was messy, and like, you know, it's like I would make pasta all day, but I'd make maybe 3/4 of the amount of pasta as you would because I was fucking doped out.
Right.
And so I don't know. That's just something that I want to bring up. I want to bring it up as much as possible, is that you know, I love this industry, and I think that it is possible to be sober in this industry, even if you are an addict like me, right? Like I can't, you know, I've tried, right? I've tried to have one drink, you know, one hit of weed, but it's like, even when I smoke weed, it's like, that's all I'm doing all day, right? I'm smoking weed till I can't fucking walk. So for people like me, this is still a viable option as a career. You have to find the right environment for it, because there's many environments that'll just push you back towards the path of using. I mean, there's been places that I've been paid in drugs. So
well, I'll tell you, you know what and you know this better than anybody, is that if you have a problem and you need to get sober and you make the decision to get sober, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of, you know, dedication to actually getting sober. And that essentially should mean you can work wherever you want. And, you know, and like, if somebody, you know, it's like, you got to pick your friends wisely. And like, you know, if, you know, one of my buddies is trying to quit smoking meth and I'm a full-blown meth addict, odds are I'm not going to be too sympathetic to the fact that he wants to quit smoking meth. because misery loves company, right?
Yeah.
But like if somebody's like, and I know several people like this in my life, that if I'm like, I've been drinking too much, they won't even bring it, they won't suggest going out for drinks or like, oh, you want to, like, okay, well, that's cool. We can do it, whatever. Like if they're cool with your pursuit for sobriety and not putting it in your face, that's your true friends, and you have to gravitate towards that. And then, if they're not, it's like, I don't know. For me, it happened pretty early on in my career where I didn't want to hang out with people after work, unless it was like somebody like you or like somebody I was close with where, but like,
it wasn't just going out for drinks. It was like
No.
actually creating a friendship and a relationship with someone when you went out with them after work.
Right.
That's what you
And
mean,
like,
yeah.
I love going to the bars. I love bars. I love the atmosphere of a bar. I like sitting in a bar. Like it just is alluring to me. It always has been. But you'll find me in the little bit rougher, darker, dingier bars that are not fancy, and you're not going to see anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I got bars here now that, like one of my dad's old good buddies owns this bar in LaPorte, and it's just like, it's rough. It's a biker bar. You go in there and it's like, there's no bullshit happening, like you don't screw around in there. And the owner, he's like this huge, very intimidating, like, I mean, it's the type of place where you screw around, you're going to get exited by your forehead out the door. You know what I'm saying? And like,
Yeah.
That's not typically the type of place where all the servers and all the everybody are going to be like, let's go meet for drinks. It's like, I didn't ever want to be a part of that. Early on, I did. But I had to learn many reasons why not to hang out with people that you work with because, or have sex with them, stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I actually learned that really early on. So it's all about getting sober is a dedication thing. So, I think you can go work construction and work around a bunch of, not dogging the construction industry, but there's a lot of coke and all kinds of drugs in those industries so it's a sobriety, if you got a problem, is a real tough pursuit. My hat goes off to you for accomplishing that, because not a lot of people at that level you were make it out of that. The dedication that you displayed by being able to do that and maintain it and go through every uncomfortable scenario that you had to go through and stay diligent about your healing and your sobriety. I mean, 3 years, like it actually blows my mind, but like your story should get out there, because a lot of people feel hopeless. They feel comfort in their daily routines, even if that means getting off of work and drinking 10 beers or, sticking a needle in your arm or whatever it may be. I know that there has to be a break in the cycle and some strong dedication after that. And I always knew you had that. I mean, obviously with your cooking, like I saw your dedication to better yourself. So that's ingrained in you 100%. And it worked out, so that's, I'm really proud of you. Like really proud of you.
Thank you. You're going to make me cry on, over a Zoom call. I really appreciate that. I will say this, and then I want to talk about what you're just like quickly what you're doing in the near future, and then we'll have to cut it off because we can't have a 4-hour episode. I want to say this though. Part of the reason that I love this industry so much is because when I did get sober, there were people there for me. 2 of the people are on this Zoom call. A lot of it was family, but in the restaurant industry, there was a diverse network of people who supported me through that time in my life. Because I had nothing, right? When you have nothing, it's very hard to stay sober. If you don't have a job, you don't have a way to get to your job, you don't have a place to live. And like all of those things were supported by both of you guys. And so really, although I take that compliment and I'm very appreciative and I'm very proud of the work that I've done, that's also something that I think is necessary and present in the restaurant community. So, okay. So What's the place you're working at right now? What's your projection for the next 6 months? Are you going to be at that place? Where are you going to be starting the new meat packing place? I know that you're going through a lot of personal things right now. So what's the near future plan for you?
I'm just kind of going with the flow. Like you said, it was important for me to just kind of like take some time to figure some things out. Right now I'm just going to work and just to stay busy, and just so happen to be doing something that I like doing. I don't see anything outside of there. When I came down here, I had a lot of options, and most of them had nothing to do with food whatsoever, so like my mom's been working at this huge marina in Michigan City for 35 years, and basically I could go be a salesman or walk in there and like be positioned for a top role because they're like family and stuff like that. I probably will be there for the next 6 months. It's called Sims Meat Processing. It's in KOP. It's a LaPorte address, but KOP is the Kingsbury Ordnance Plant, and it's this giant wildlife refuge. Like, I work in the middle of a cornfield out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And that's actually a place that manufactured weapons for World War II. And it was high on the list of Hitler's bombing. So it's really cool out there. There's a shooting range, there's archery ranges, there's like a river and stuff. So being out there has been, and I grew up out there. Like, my dad used to take me hunting out there. So being, I'm really reconnecting with being back home, although I do miss Minnesota. I miss my friends, miss having access to certain things that are up there, but this feels like home. So it really does. And I'm probably, for 6 months, I'll probably be there because they're crazy busy. And I think there's some potential there for branching off. Like, I didn't mention, he wants to start a catering division off of it too, because they do some retail stuff. And that would be like, hog roasts are a big deal down here. Like, they're a big deal everywhere,
Yeah.
But like everybody, for every birthday, graduation, even weddings, like hog roasts are massive down here. So like catering and like branching off and doing other things. And then I might actually potentially approach the owner and see about like a potential partnership to like maybe help me with my pursuit into my own business, because number one, he'd probably be happy to, because it would take a lot of pressure off of him. Like, because one thing as a business owner, when you're booked like that, that's really hard to do, is say no to everybody that's calling now. He's saying no on the phone all day, and like, so I think spreading that out could be a potentially good thing. But, I want to buy property in northern Minnesota. Like, I want to stay connected to that. Like, I think you remember back when I was moving down here, I had a job lined up that was a seasonal job with a year-round salary as a head chef at a very busy restaurant. So It was like, work all summer, take all winter off. Well, at the time that I got down here, and with all the personal things that I was going through and am going through, I wasn't ready to. I couldn't. They wanted like 7 days a week and 14 hours a day, and I was just like, no, I can't. So I had to give up. That was part of the main reason I came down here, was to be like, well, wow, I got winters off. This is no brainer. So I can go up to Minnesota and kick it all winter, and then just come back, or go back and forth or whatever. And I'd like to figure out how to find a way to do something in both states. I mean, really, because like it's awesome to be here, but it's also, I lived in Minnesota for 21 years. So it's like, kind of home to me there too. So, but I don't know. I also firmly believe that when things get thrown your way, you got to pay attention, stop and think of why this is happening. And the rest is up to you. It's like, here you go. Here's everything you want. You moved home. Here's everything you wanted.
Yeah.
Something really, really terrible happened, but in supplement to that, here's also the job that you want that will give you all the tools to do the thing that you've been like kind of dreaming to do for a long time, and a very special woman in your life that can, you know, provide that sort of level of, you know, compassion and wholesomeness and stuff like that. So it's like, I recognize those as like two things that would have never, ever happened if I didn't move here. So now I just kind of am going day to day, working hard, making connections, you know, trying to be the best that I can be. And I think that as things come my way, I'll be able to recognize why. And like, you know, who knows? Up in Duluth area, that's another area that's strongly desiring a meat processing sort of place. So like this whole thing could be like back and forth, you know?
I love that.
I think it just depends on finding like the right staff and being able to manage it as such to where I could actually be back and forth and oversee and not necessarily do, because one thing I did wrong in my chef career was, you know, I could always manage things from a business standpoint and like, but I didn't let go enough. I didn't entrust what I was doing to enough people to really be able to be like, okay, as an owner, you're like, you step in, you help, you do things, but then it's like, all right, I'm going to be gone for 3-4 days up in Minnesota or whatever, and like have that, like shut that off and, you know, be cool with the fact that you're not going to be there because everybody you got there is going to handle everything, you know?
Right.
Like that's what it takes to do multi-state type of stuff. But, you know, one humble little butcher shop in Indiana and one in Minnesota somewhere is not realistically, that's not that hard to manage. That should really be capable, you know, to do. So
that would be sick. I'd love to see that.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that. And I'd love in the next, maybe not in the next couple months, but within the next 6 months, you should come up here. You should come to the studio and we should have a follow-up interview with you.
Well, I'll actually be there in like less than a month.
Okay, we'll do it in less than a month then. Fuck it.
Well, if you can swing it, but I actually gotta go to Duluth to get a canoe, and I have other friends in Minneapolis that things have kind of calmed down there a little bit, because when I was moving here, everything was terrible, like everything, you know, and like I wanted to come down and see all my friends before I left. My plan was to be down there for like a week before I moved down here,
but it was a nightmare.
The whole place was on fire, so I was like, I'm not going there, you know. So it, you know, but I definitely want to make that happen, and I got to go get, you know, my canoe, see Chuck, and then definitely going to make a stop through Minneapolis. So I'll let you know when I'm looking at doing that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and if we don't do the podcast, we'll just grab dinner. I'm gonna have to hang up on you though, brother. We've gone over our time. Thank you so much, man. It was a great interview.
Hey, thanks, Chad.
It was awesome to talk to you, and we'll be in touch.
All right, sounds good. Take it easy, guys.
Peace.
Yeah.
Later.